Hello everyone, my name is Rocco and I'm a computer engineer. I've been studying at Santa Rosa Junior College for the past 2 years, and I've gone through CS 10A through C. I've also done CS 17.11, the Java course, which I highly recommend, and learned a lot. But there's also a couple gaps, things I didn't learn along the way, as I'm sure you will find. We each have our own challenging areas as we progress through this career of learning these new tech devices. But one tool that I think we all would be better programmers for having learned is the debugger. And unfortunately, out of all the instruction I've received at SRJC, I've received none on the debugger. I've gone around to a few YouTube videos and I've learned how to kind of use it on my own. But I wanted to go over it quickly today, a little crash course on a program that we'll make from scratch to test and see how the debugger works. So let's code a bit. I'm using Visual Studio 2019. I recommend anyone who's using code blocks and is on a Windows machine that you upgrade to Visual Studio. It has so many great utilities that I'll kind of show you how to use today, and it's just a great IDE. So without further ado, let's create a new project. I'm going to go with an empty project, C++. And next, project 4, outstanding, and create. Alright, here we see Visual Studio Code. Sorry, Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code. It's a whole other program. Probably after you do 10C, you're going to look at Visual Studio Code. But for now, in Visual Studio, let's go over to the source files, right-click, add. We're going to add a new item. It's going to be our just plain source CPP file that the main function will live in. So how should we expect this to go? We called function. If indeed test1 is negative, that's what it should say. Else, ooh, it's spelled positive, right? It's positive. Same thing for test2. Alright, now the debugger bit. So in order to debug, there's a few different tools that we gotta be familiar with. Over here in the left bar, you can drop these little red dots on any line of code that will execute. For instance, if you drop it like in the middle here, it won't exactly stop there. It'll actually stop on the return. This is a good way to catch some things. If you want to make sure that the program doesn't exit on you, you can have it stop right here. And that way you can see the printout, make sure everything was solid. Other than that, if you encounter a problem in your code, it's good to start from top to bottom. So let's run this thing. Let's see how it runs. Excellent. So 5 is positive and -5 is negative. That's how we expected it to run. But what's actually going on inside the machine, step by step by step? And that's the idea behind the debugger. So let's take a look at this first function. So I put a stop sign right here, so that way after I hit this play button, the program will start, and it stopped. I actually see a yellow arrow right now on that red dot. So that is exactly where the machine has stopped in execution. I also got a whole other menu over here. We can worry about that another time. For now, let's focus on the autos in the bottom left. This is a great place, simple and easy place to start for finding out how to use the debugger and all the capabilities of it. What the autos do is it pulls all of the local variables and then shows the values associated with them at this time in the program. So right now we see that test 1 has 5, test 2 has -5 accordingly. And we also, if we hover our mouse over the variables themselves, we can see that they have numbers. It gets a little tricky though, because sometimes if you hover, for instance, at the line of execution, the value could be different than if you hover up high at the object's initialization. So just be cognizant of that, that if you're hovering over the mouse of test 2 up here, it could be very well a different value as it continues along in the program. But for now, here we are. We're stopped, and we got to look at the autos of all these different objects that we could see in memory. So from here, let's look at the controls. In the top center of Visual Studio, there's a suite of controls to allow you to debug. You got step into, step over, step out of. So because as soon as this line of code executes, we will actually call this function is negative. So in this instance, I'm going to use the feature to step into. And then the screen changed. And here I am. I see my yellow arrow has moved, and I'm actually in the function is negative now. A millisecond elapsed. Outstanding. This thing's quick. So here we go. We can then use F10 or step over up here on the top center of Visual Studio, and then you can go line by line and watch the yellow arrow on the left of the screen. Step, step. And here we actually saw that something was changed. Verified negative, false. Oh, and it stayed false through the entire process. So there we go. We had it go through all the way. If we do step through over one more time, it'll then exit the function. And because it tested that it was positive, it totally skipped this line of execution, and the yellow arrow went accordingly where we expected for the if statement. And if we hit step over one more time, there we go. We got a C out, we got a print, 5 is indeed positive. So let's say we didn't want to step into this function at this instance. We wanted to stay in main and debug. We would do a step over. We stepped over it, it found that it was negative, so there it goes. I see that it is negative there in the autos, and I hit continue. And that's it. I'm going to hit enter in my terminal, and there it goes. It ended it. So let's say that even though I have a bunch of debugging places where I still think there may be problems, but I don't want to necessarily halt the program. I just want to see output, make sure I can get a good build, I can get good solid output. So I don't want to debug. I'm going to hit Control F5. Just kidding, I have to stop this thing first. Always got to stop this first. That was a frustrating thing in CS10A. Alright. No program instance is running. I'm going to hit Control F5. And there it goes. Program ran, I got output, and it didn't stop at the stop sign on the left of the screen. So that is the very basic down and dirty on how to step into a function, check out the autos, and then be able to verify the program is doing what you'd expect. That's always a critical piece to do. Off to the side, have a pen and pad, and what I will do is I'll sit with a calculator or whatever thing I need to check, and I'll write down inputs and then known good outputs of how I expect the program to perform. And then when it deviates from any of that, that's when I pull out the debugger, I stop it at the function that I need to check, and I go from there. So good luck to all of you. Next video will be about dynamic memory and memory allocation with the debugger. Thank you all for watching, and good luck this semester.